Hello guys, welcome back to our third episode of I don't even know what to call this show anymore. Today we're reading The Amazing World of Gumball, The Grieving. Oh boy, I've always loved Cartoon Network when I was growing up. It was my favorite channel to watch. Even today it has some good shows like Adventure Time and Regular Show. That's pretty much it. That's all you mentioned. Okay, cool. I thought Flapjack was pretty good, but whatever. One of the newest shows on the network, The Amazing World of Gumball. It's a cute, mildly entertaining show. Not really my cup of tea. It's a little immature, but my brother seems to like it a lot. So you're not implying that Adventure Time and Regular Show aren't also immature? One day I was watching Adult Swim when I realized that I'd been up so late I hadn't kept track of the time. It was already 4 a.m. I don't ever recall watching as this late. Yeah, you heard me pause right there. It says, I don't ever recall watching as this late. Who is this late? Is this late your name? Hello, Mr. This Late? So I stayed awake to see what would happen when it ended. A little bumper showed up at the bottom of the screen during a commercial break. It said that the special episode of The Amazing World of Gumball was about to come on. I was a little confused about an episode of a very popular new show. Well, if it's new, how's it very popular? Whatever. But I was bored and I decided I would watch it. Just like me recording these recordings and shit, but whatever. Thinking it might come on later in the day, I could spoil it for my little brother. Sort of mean, I know. The flashy and energetic intro theme played, although it was played differently than I recall. Ooh, scary. The music was a little different. Well, are you gonna tell us? No? Okay. And the show's logo wasn't animated. Its colors were done rather sloppily, as well as almost like something a little kid would do on a doodle board or a glow board. I ignored it, assuming that it was just done for this special episode. The title of the episode was The Grieving. Sort of sad title, but I didn't really pay too much attention. Well, if you weren't paying much attention, you probably wouldn't know that the intro was drawn like a doodle board drawing. The music was different, and it was called The Grieving. If you really didn't care, you wouldn't notice these things. It began with Gumball, the show's 12-year-old protagonist. Wow, we needed to know that, didn't we? Standing alone, facing a corner of his dimly lit classroom, he looked absolutely miserable, a far cry from the cheerful demeanor he usually had. There was no one else in the room, not even his best friend and adopted brother Darwin, the goldfish. You know what? What is Gumball? Darwin is a goldfish. What is Gumball? You know, Darwin the goldfish sounds like a really shitty Sonic OC. And the windows in the room clearly showed the night sky outside. I was really starting to get confused. Why would he be at a school at night, and why was he standing in the corner all sad and alone? Well, if this episode's called Grieving, I'm pretty sure it should probably be self-explanatory. He's probably grieving or something, I don't know. After about what seemed like a minute of Gumball standing somberly in the corner, the scene suddenly changed. We were in Gumball's house once again, and the scene is silent and a little disquieting? Hold on, is disquieting an actual word? Hold on. Yes, disquieting is an actual word, inducing feelings of anxiety or worry. Well, that's quite the nice vocabulary you got there, sir, but that's probably the only time you're going to use a big word in this entire story. Richard Gumball's enormous rabid father walks in from the kitchen. He looked more miserable than Gumball had in the previous scene. Richard isn't wearing his usual attire. He's dressed in a fancy black suit. A little uncharacteristic of him. He's usually a Slav. Doesn't the father in the show wear like a dress shirt and a tie? I'm pretty sure that's formal enough, really. He sighs and slumps down on the sofa and starts sobbing intensely, sounding like someone had just lost something important. I was starting to get a little creeped out. Where was a silly, fun cartoon that I usually look forward to watching with my younger brother? This was something completely different. I was beginning to think that this might have something to do with the creators did as an experiment or something. Test of animation or sound, perhaps. Well, logically, that wouldn't be the case because I'm pretty sure an episode would go through Cartoon Network and just not air out of fucking nowhere, but whatever. Though it couldn't have been, aside from the opening theme, which was still different from the final shows. The episode had been much quieter than it usually was. Only subtle sounds and very little music. And the animation was nothing to write home about either, like the actual show. It was done a bit like an amateur Flash on Newgrounds. The character designs were somewhat sloppy and rushed looking, and the real-life backgrounds were used for the show looked different. As confused and somewhat frightened as I was, for some reason I kept watching it. Well, if you're frightened, why are you still watching it? Poor Richard was still sobbing on the sofa, as the front door opened suddenly, making me jump a bit. Such a loud noise. Is opening a door that loud of a noise that you're gonna jump out of your seat? I don't know. And Gumball's mother, Nicole, a blue cat like it. Okay, they're cats. Cool. Like Richard, she wasn't wearing her usual outfit. For some reason, she was in a black dress with a pretty black cat to match. You know, unlike other creepypastas, they aren't describing these outfits in complete fucking detail, but this is probably because they're describing actual canon characters and not themselves. By this point, Richard's crying had began to get more pained and miserable sounding. This wasn't a normal cartoon crying on the show. This was realistic and almost depressing crying. Was it hyper-realistic? That's a real question. I almost felt like sobbing myself. Just like me when I record this. I don't know. Finally, what after seemed like hours, the sad scene at the home and as it shifted back to the school. We weren't in Gumball's classroom this time, we were in Principal Brown's office. Nicole and Richard were there in their usual clothes, looking more happy than they had before, but slightly worried. Principal Brown, however, looked extremely sad. He quietly and somberly informed that their children, Anais and Darwin, were not present after lunch earlier today. They hadn't been seen at all the rest of the day. Nicole was instantly furious at him. She began spouting various insults and calls at him that I don't think would have made it on a mature program like Regular Show. If Regular Show was mature, I was laughing at this because it seemed sort of funny for Nicole to flip out in this manner and start swearing like a sailor in a G-rated cartoon, but my outlook soon changed when Principal Brown told her something else after she finally had quieted down. His eyes began to tear up as he informed them that they were eventually found, but they had not been found alive. He went into graphic and nearly nauseating detail describing how their bodies were found. You know, at least he had the common courtesy to not describe the entire details of their bodies and stuff, I guess, because a lot of other creepypastas would do that, and I would have been ripping on that right now, but alas, he didn't do it. I could hardly believe what was happening. How could such a cheery and fun kid show could be taking such a dark and twisted turn? Because this is a creepypasta, sir. Do you know what you're in? Of course, shit like this is gonna happen. I was considering turning the television off, but I was too scared to be left in the dark by now. You know, what would be worse, watching this disturbing show or being in the dark for like a couple seconds? Because I assume you have like a flashlight or like a light source nearby. Nearly frozen by fear and disturbed intently at the terrible things that he was saying. Another flashback. The scene was earlier that day. The animation in the scene was even worse than earlier. I don't remember it very clearly. Then how do you know it's shitty animation? But I think he began his recollection by saying that the school had called the police department when they first turned up missing, believing that the kids had simply run off and decided to skip school. They said it was very uncharacteristic of both Darwin and Anais to go skipping school like delinquents. Darwin was a little bit naive and a bit ditzy, but he was a good kid and wouldn't have dreamed of doing something like that. And Anais was likely to run away. She was a straight-A student despite being only 4, which also troubled the police, seeing as a defenseless 4-year-old girl was missing as well as an older boy. Fish, you mean. Don't assume his animal species or something. The school had been thoroughly checked, so the police started to search the heavily warded area outside the school. It took little time for the police to discover the horrifying fate of Anais in a small clearing outside of the school. Anais' head was found in a small box. You would likely have expected something like that to be shown in the show's cutesy art style, but it was nothing like that at all. Realistic blood in the box. Hyper-realistic blood? That's cool, I guess. And do you really expect for like a decapitated head to be drawn in the same style as the original cartoon? While Anais' head was done in a normal style, but was drenched in blood and some other fluids, not all of them were hers apparently, did somebody piss on the box? Who pissed on the box here? There was a note in the box, seemingly written by her and written in her blood. It was never stated during the episode what exactly was written on the note, but it apparently led to the rest of her remains and Darwin's heavily mutilated fish corpse. Looks like somebody made a filet mignon or whatever. Filet-O-Fish. McDonald's. What I remember most about the scene is how out of place it seemed. All the blood and gore from Darwin and Anais' slaughtered and dismembered remains was done in a very realistic and disturbing way. So, were they drawn as like actual rabbits and an actual fish? Because really, that would make it, I guess, less scary, in my opinion. It looked like the scene had been taken out of a crime scene photograph done by a professional, not something out of a cartoon. What kind of professional crime scene photographer is going to take a picture of a fucking fish and a pink rabbit? You may know that the characters from this series are done in vastly different animation styles, from flash animation to CGI, and I think that there's even a character done by putting the chin upside down to make a face. This particular scene wasn't like anything I'd seen on the show before. Every little detail on Darden's face was clearly illustrated, and he looked like a zombie. A decaying fish, by the way. His face was very pale, and his eyes had been gouged out by someone. And I fared no better, or what was left of her anyways. She was naked, and her stomach had been slit open, and her intestines were strewn about the trees, the bushes, the woods, and done blah 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 blah, generic creepypasta gore shit. You know, man, I wonder how these creepypasta readers, like, get by with, like, adpocalypse and shit. Because this is, like, the type of stuff that'll get you demonetized in, like, five seconds. I was feeling very ill by the time this disturbing flashback had come to an end, so I quickly ran into the bathroom to vomit. Well, why'd you run into the bathroom? You're missing so much other stuff. I guess the show's waiting for you, considering it's probably haunted. I was feeling better after upchucking. Okay, here's your second occasion where you're actually using some weird-ass words, because upchucking is vomiting. So I had realized that I had good timing and ran to the bathroom during a commercial. See, the show's haunted. It was then I noticed that the show had been running twice as long. It usually ran for 11 minutes, but this episode was running for about 30. I mean, it's a special episode, so what do you expect? By then, I was wondering if there was any information on the Grieving on IMDb or something. So while the commercials are still playing, I looked up some information about this episode on Google. Nothing came up. No information remotely similar to the plot or name of this episode existed anywhere. Now, incredibly scared and wondering if anyone else was watching. Okay, so the fact that, you know, all these characters are dying and shit, and all this, like, realistic graphics and stuff doesn't scare you, but realizing that the show probably doesn't exist is scaring you the most. You know, there's no problem with that. No, there's no obvious problem with that. I quickly dialed my brother Larry and asked him to turn into Cartoon Network and see if he was seeing the same shit as I was. You're gonna call your friend at like 4:30 in the morning to tell him to watch Gumball? And sure enough, he does. He was pretty mad that I woke him up at this hour. Yeah, no shit. But he's a nice guy, and he would see it for me. I thanked him and stayed on the line. As the show came back from the commercial break, this scene had thankfully panned away from the horrific sight of children mutilated, woodland creatures, and was back to the principal's office. I asked Larry if he saw some cartoon animals talking or crying, since that was what they were doing on my TV. To my surprise, he had saw nothing like that. It said it was a rerun of an old Looney Tunes short. In utter shock, I dropped the phone and ran over to the TV to turn it off. And as hard as I pressed, it would not shut off at all. Okay, ooh, this TV show is haunted. I tried almost every single button, and none of them did a thing. I tried unplugging the whole thing as well, but nothing worked. The TV stayed on no matter what. Have you tried, I don't know, trying to break the TV maybe? Maybe that would work. You know, even better? How about you turn down the volume? You don't have to hear it, you don't have to look at it. Larry had hung up, assuming that I was playing a joke or something, I guess. I was alone once again. My door was locked from the other side somehow, and the door to my bathroom was now locked as well. Is the mutilated corpse of a fish with legs that wears sneakers and shit in your house now, locking all your doors? You know, I'm gonna call it. There's gonna be a anthropomorphic fish that wears sneakers. No, a zombie anthropomorphic fish that wears sneakers roaming around your house and locking all your doors. It seemed that I had no choice but to call the police since my other members were gone for the night. It was the reason that I could stay up there so late to watch Adult Swim in the first place. When I hurriedly dialed the number, I accidentally dropped my cell phone into my cup of Pepsi. You know, how convenient that cup of Pepsi just happened to be there. You know, and you just so happened to drop your phone while you're calling the cops. I was very scared, and I had no choice but to finish the episode. I turned on all the lights in my room and got under the covers, hiding like my little brother does when I make him watch scary movies with me. The police were called once again to search a building in the small forest outside of Elmore Junior's High. They had found him in Miss Simeon's classroom. hanging by a noose with a blood-covered knife behind him and blood covering his clothing. The episode ended with a shot of Gumball's dead body hanging there in the corner, fading to black as the credit rolls silently. Not in the usual way Cartoon Network annoyingly airs a promo that squishes half of the screen. The credits roll unusually slow and weren't that fun to watch either. A little creepy, just plain white text scrolling on a black background. I only recognize Ben Bakwalet's name, if that's how you pronounce it, as he was the creator of the show. The rest of the people I never heard of. The copyright notice at the end said Cartoon Network Studios 2001, which was incredibly odd, seeing this show was new for 2011. It'll call back to 2016. I remember something like this saying like this episode has aired, or like the copyright for this episode was blank amount of years before the actual show was made. Spooky. After all that was over, the screen went to static for a split second, during which some incredibly creepy and shocking video clips were shown in between static intervals. I can still remember them all very clearly. The first was a picture of a person in a plague doctor outfit. Was it Hitman? Those always scared me for some reason, and the way the person in the suit was filmed was just bad. A red light, something that freaks me out, incredibly was shown over the clip. Okay, red light's scary. Okay, whatever. Next was what seemed to be a video being played very quickly over of a kid's face being squished by a woman wearing high heels, which was strange because a so-called friend of mine sent me a picture yesterday of a cat being stepped and killed, similar to the kidnap video. You know, this is an actual fetish, by the way. I don't know what it's called, but this is an actual fetish. You know, shit being crushed. The last one was the one that disturbed me the most and wanted me to cry and vomit my guts out. It was my little brother, or at least a small child, that looked very similar to him, being shot in the face by a person who looked like my father. Why is this here? What is this doing here? You could clearly see the child's brain and blood splatter on the wall. I began to sob uncontrollably after that traumatizing clip, so much that I passed out. When I woke up, my door was unlocked and my television was turned off. I went to call the police on the home phone in my kitchen and report I saw some very disturbing things on TV. You know, good thing you mentioned this. Why are you calling the cops because of a disturbing TV show? Because they know you're crazy. If you call them up oh shit, this fucking, I don't know, filet-o-fish over here just got killed on my screen. Someone call the cops. This is scary as shit. Somebody toss me a blanket or something. I don't know. When they arrived, they could find nothing like that. I remembered from early this morning, my internet history was even cleared. They were angry at me and I just assumed I had a bad nightmare when I was sure I hadn't. Thankfully, one of the officers felt bad for me and he took me out to a small dinner so I could recollect my thoughts. At the diner, I remember that my family was out visiting my aunt and they were supposed to be back by noon or so. It was already 11, so the officer and I drove back only to find the whole squad of police cars and even some government agents at my house. How do you know that they're government agents? Don't tell me you asked them. They explained to me that my little brother was missing and that my mother and father were major suspects. I was freaking out and trying to tell them about the disturbing clip of the boy that looked like my brother being shot in the head, but they wouldn't listen. I stayed with my elder brother Larry, who wouldn't believe me either, still insisting that all he saw was some old Looney Tunes cartoons and that nothing creepy or weird. The cops eventually told me that they would contact Tuner Broadcasting and tell them about the incident. A representative of Tuner Broadcasting came into my cousin's house and talked to me in private about what I experienced that night. He was very kind, but seemed a little formal. He was very kind, but it seemed a little like some sort of front. After I could tell him all that I remembered, he agreed to play back that day's programming from when the incident with the disturbing Gumball episode had occurred. To my shock, all that was airing during that time was an old Looney Tunes short, nothing more, nothing less. I hysterically sobbed and moaned. You know, you just gotta include that moaning part. You know, right now I'd be laughing my ass off if it weren't 12:51 a.m., but, you know. Okay, where was I? I hysterically sobbed and moaned that what I had experienced was completely real. But no one ever listened. Eventually I discovered that Ben Bucklet had a Twitter account, and I sent a message about the episode, and this is the reply I got. One thing, how the hell did you find it? I never, ever thought I would think about that old shame again. Don't tell anyone this, Sarah. Yes, that's my name. Okay, that's really... Wait, how did the creator of Gumball know your name all of a sudden? explain story, please. But the amazing world of Gumball goes back further than you know. I used to have a very boring job as a teen, and I sketched some little drawings of the Watersons and friends. The episode you saw was never supposed to be seen by anyone but me and a few friends of mine. It was a very, very awful joke, but we made the episode as a joke. A guy from my old job, who everyone hated, had lost a child to a crazy serial killer who was apparently out there somewhere. You know, if this story wasn't like complete bullshit, I would actually say that Ben Buquet is kind of a dick, but this is completely fake, so yeah. We made it so he can make fun of how he came into work usually crying like a fool, which is why you saw Miss and Mrs. Watterson cry so much about the episode. I know I am deeply sorry for what I did, which is why I tried to bury that stupid thing years ago. Literally, I went out to the countryside with my mates and dug a hole and buried it. What I don't get, though, is how you describe the blood and guts and stuff. We didn't have any scene with Darwin and Anai's body being found at all. That happens in the episode. All that happens in the episode is the parents are informed of their kids being dead and crying like crazy. We didn't draw anything in the episode like that. We're not that sick. Now this is my theory. Oh boy. This is a Gumball theory. The lunatic who killed the man of the child found the tape we buried, watched it, and heavily edited it. Then he hijacked the local TV station near star. I blocked out the name of my city. I'm paranoid enough, it's a small town, somehow, and got the episode to air on your local Cartoon Network station. Now, why bother? Okay, hold on. If this is a local Cartoon Network station, because does Cartoon Network have like local stations? This is just me being kind of ignorant right now. So yeah, if there isn't any public Cartoon Network stations, then this entire episode would be like broadcasted around the world, because I'm pretty sure Cartoon Network has their like own satellite or something. I don't know. This is my own theory now. Oh shit. Now, why your brother couldn't see it, I have no idea. It seems you're the only one who saw it. I have no idea either. Sorry, but I just don't know. Now for the explanation you have been waiting for. The clips at the end, I don't know. I'm deeply sorry from the bottom of my heart, but I don't know why those clips were aired. I am sorry, I really am. But me and my mates were ones who made those scenes of Richard and Nicole crying. That's it. I'm sorry, sir. I'm deeply sorry. Best wishes, Ben Buckley, and everyone involved with the Grieving. Jesus Christ. You fit this all on a Twitter post? Oh my god. And that's it. Okay, so we've been recording for like half an hour, so I'm gonna just kind of make this quick. You know, I feel that the pictures of Patrick Star, hyper-realistic Patrick Star over here on the side of this page are more scary than this story. But then again, you know, you have the pointless fucking gore, hyper-realistic gore, might I add. The disturbing TV show that apparently only one person saw, and like pointless violence. I mean, we could have just stopped it at, like, the kids being killed and stuff, like, you know, the filet-o-fish and the rabbit soup. But, you know, I'm pretty sure that a child being shot in the head wasn't that necessary for the story to be any more scary. I rate this 0 out of 10, to be honest. This is actually pretty ass. But then again, everything I read on this show is pretty ass, so this shouldn't be much of a surprise.